Resident Evil 2 has some of the most iconic locations in the franchise, and if you're like me, the Raccoon City Police Department is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of RE2. Since the RPD was converted from an old art museum, the building has a lot of interesting rooms and spaces that are pretty unique compared to your typical police station. You have more practical rooms like the S.T.A.R.S office where you can sit down and just do normal paperwork and nothing else weird at all. And you have other pretty standard police station rooms like the Interrogation Room and the holding cells. But you also have very peculiar rooms like this dusty old Cog Room, the antique-looking Tiger Corridor, and whatever this weird dungeon area is supposed to be. And many of the areas are a combination of this old museum architecture with a modern police makeover. But have you ever wondered to yourself, what is the best room in the RPD? Well, I have, and that's exactly what we're going to explore in today's video. Using a very basic grading rubric that goes over the vibes of the room, iconic in-game moments, the loot, enemies, and any puzzles that make the room memorable, we're going to rank all 46 rooms in the RPD from S tier to F tier, and we're going to find out which rooms shine above the rest, and which rooms are not quite up to snuff. So let's head inside and start our journey through the RPD. So let's start off with the main hall first floor, and then we'll work our way towards the west wing. So right off the bat, it's the most iconic room in RE2, at least for me. The lamps have a really cool round design, the lighting is not too bright but not too dim, and it just accents this really nice cement floor pretty well. And right off the bat, you have this little force stair if you want to skateboard. You see if you can ollie that. I think Leon could ollie that. And you also have these really cool wooden balustrades, very simple but elegant. It just feels like you're walking around in an old art museum, right? And you have this nice soft RPD rug right in the center that leads to this amazing statue. Look at that. This whole reception area is super iconic. Like the first thing you see when you go in the RPD is this statue, and the reception area is so cleverly hidden behind this statue, and it's just so cozy back here. You have this huge open space that's almost like an opera house, but if you want, you can still kind of hide away back here. This room is like the perfect central hub to go anywhere you need to go in the mansion, and of course it's what it's designed to do. But yeah, you have 3 options on the bottom, and then you have this ladder up here. Yeah, you can basically reach almost anywhere in the RPD very quickly from this room. The loot in here is amazing, especially in the B scenarios. This is where you find the shotgun for Leon and the grenade launcher for Claire. And getting the spade key from this statue after you put the unicorn medal in it is, I think, one of the first puzzles you do in the game, and it's just so memorable and iconic. But just look at this room, right? Like you can see the first, second, and third floor from here. It's just such a well-designed room, and it's easily one of the most iconic, so I'm giving it an S+ rank. And moving right along, up next we have the waiting room, first floor. I don't know why, if it's just me, but I am absolutely in love with this room. But the elephant in this room, I would say, is this thing. What is this thing? What is this column here? What does it do? Is it like, you know, when you're like at an airport or something and you need to fill out your declaration form or something, and they have these little kiosks that you can just write on your little card with a little pen that's attached so you can't steal it. Is that what this is? I don't know, but it intrigues me. And I really love the color scheme of this room. It's just very earthy. It has that light beige on the top with the darker wood trim around the walls. And it's super well lit, I think, just from this one overhead lamp up here. And for a waiting room, who likes waiting rooms, right? They're always very... you have to wait in them. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. This waiting room is actually pleasant to be in. I don't know why. You have this really open area where you can stretch your legs and just kind of walk around. Yeah, there's just a lot of things you can do in here while you wait. And there's a neat little nook behind here with the desks and a nice little window you can look out of. And this door is for staff only, I think. But I guess if it's the apocalypse, we're allowed to go back there. Yeah, and of course, one of the most iconic moments in the game is seeing the liquor through the window. To me, seeing the liquor crawl across the window is even more iconic than the cutscene itself. Like, when you first play the game, you're like, what the hell is that? That's not a zombie. Oh yeah, and there's an item box in here. It's like one of those rooms that doesn't... It's kind of like a pseudo save room, a pseudo legendary save room. But there are a couple zombies in here in the B scenario. And the only thing really holding this room back is the loot. There's just no really cool items in here. You get some handgun bullets as Claire and some shotgun shells as Leon, but you have to use the old key to get it. I don't know. I don't like when things are locked behind a paywall, especially if it's just shotgun shells. So I love the vibes of this room so much, and I love the iconic liquor window so much. I'm gonna give this room an A-. And up next, we have the L Corridor. This corridor is okay, but it's a little too messy. And I think it was like this before the outbreak, actually. They did such a sloppy job putting boxes on this little hand cart here. Like, you're not gonna be able to push that anywhere. And I don't know if you can see these candles on the wall pretty clearly, but there are several of these in the RPD and none of them are lit. And I think that's like a remnant of the art museum before it became the RPD. But now the RPD just uses these overhead fluorescent lights and it's just so ugly. It's just a wasted opportunity to not use the candlelight, right? And there's plenty of windows. This one's broken. I guess that's how the liquor got in. The red color towards the end of the hallway near this emergency thing is pretty nice, but I don't like this trash can and all these boxes here. Like, again, I don't think that was a product of the outbreak panic. I think someone's just lazy. And something you'll notice as we go through the RPD is all this exposed ventilation and wiring. And in some rooms it works. In this room, I don't think it does. It's just kind of ugly and not in a charming or endearing way. The loot in this room is kind of meh. You just get handgun bullets from the dead body and this green herb. Of course, the liquor cutscene is one of the most iconic in the franchise. That's funny. Leon just says, "Oh boy." That's your reaction. He's so wholesome. Gee golly, a liquor. Yeah, and the posters along the wall are just kind of there. Nothing too special. And again, the liquor cutscene does a lot of the heavy lifting in this room. So pretty much just because of the cutscene, I'm going to put the L Corridor at a B-. So up next is everyone's favorite, the file storage. It might be one of the first bad rooms in the game that you see. It is way too messy and a bit too chaotic in here, but it is a nice little hideaway. Nothing really scary happens in this room. And to me, I do kind of like archive kind of rooms, but the color palette in here is just way too cold and uncomfortable. There's like nowhere to sit where you can read your files. And you basically just need to come here for the square crank or the lighter for Claire B. You can get some exercise if you want to push the step ladder. Like, this room is on the verge of being a terrible room just because there's nothing to do and it's so messy. And me personally, I hate copy machines. I never know how to use them. Like, every single copy machine is different. If you try to print something or make a copy, it's just so much more complicated than it used to be, I feel. And having this room locked by the spade key is just kind of insulting. I don't know. It just should have been a cooler room, or this room should have been used for something else where there's no key item in here. This room is just very average, but not completely terrible, so I'm going to give it a C-. Alright, up next we have the Winding Corridor. And this corridor is indeed very windy, but I'm not sure if I like it. There are some iconic moments in the room, like when the zombie hands come out and grab you, and in the B scenarios, zombies jump through the windows, and that legitimately scared me because I forgot about that. But there isn't any loot in the room whatsoever. Yeah, as far as the vibes go, it's very utility heavy. You can see that with this power generator box here, and all the exposed ventilation and the electrical and the plumbing up here, it all makes sense in this room, but it just kind of looks unappealing. And I don't know if it's the color scheme, like that green on green. That's a weird choice to me, but the tiles are pretty plain other than the areas right next to the door. Yeah, it's just not a very fun room to navigate in. After you go through one hallway, you have to go through this extra long hallway, and it's just kind of annoying to me. I guess stepping on the glass can be kind of satisfying as like an ASMR thing, but it is kind of unfortunate that this hallway is sandwiched in between two other hallways, and both of the other hallways are way better, so that kind of docks points for this room. You know, we don't need so many hallways. Come on, man. It's too many halls. So unfortunately, I have to give the Winding Corridor a D+. So up next we have the Operations Room, and this room is kind of hit or miss. I kind of go back and forth between this room. I don't know if I love it or I hate it. As far as loot goes, there's handgun bullets in every scenario except for Claire A for some reason. And of course you can get the red jewel from this painting in the back area. The painting itself is pretty cool actually, so it's kind of a shame it's tucked behind this area here. So it is very much like a classroom, like you have your lectern and your very uncomfortable chairs, and there are a lot of places to sit, but almost too many places. I feel like I have choice paralysis. I don't know where I'm going to sit. So I'll just stand in the corner. Yeah, and again, these are like elementary school desks. Like, come on, look at the size of that desk. Like, you can't even fit a pencil on there. And, you know, Leon's bringing his big 3-ring binder rookie notebook. They do have a coffee maker in this corner, and that's really cool, along with these other vending machines. Yeah, it's just nice to have all these options of drinks, especially the coffee. And you have a very fitting trash can right next door, so that's convenient. But some people don't want to throw their trash away, and that's very off-putting to me. This basketball poster is pretty cool. I think that's a Lakers uniform. I'm not sure what the other uniform is. If you know, let me know. Yeah, but this model is like everywhere. You'll see this poster all over the police station, so... The colors are really bright in this room, and that's actually pretty nice. Like, these tube lights can be hit or miss depending on the color scheme of the room, but it actually kind of lights up this room pretty well. So it's pretty much your standard operations room, bunch of chalkboards and whiteboards and stuff. They have this suit of armor back here, and if this was RE4, Leon would have roundhouse kicked that guy. And the fireplace puzzle itself is kind of underwhelming. It's just like, you just light it on fire. There's no extra steps. You don't need to use your brain too much. But the painting itself is actually really nice. It just feels kind of weird that it's in this back room. It should really be the centerpiece to this room. But overall, it's kind of a unique mix of standard police stuff, and then when you go in this back room, it just reminds you more of the art museum, so it does kind of have both flavors. The room is interesting, but not that iconic, so I can't give it anything higher than a B. Alright, the West Stairway first floor. This was just a pretty solid room. The architecture itself is actually pretty impressive. You have very high ceilings near the staircase, and these columns that go all the way up are really nice. And whatever this stone pattern is pretty cool. So on this side of the hall, the light fixtures are just your basic CFL lights. But then when you go to this side of the hall, it kind of has these unique vertical lights. You don't really see that every day. So that's just a nice touch. I will say that dodging the zombies in this room is super annoying, and I'm very bad at it, so I don't look forward to going through this room in a normal playthrough. But now that I can kind of kick back and smell the roses, it's actually pretty good. Again, it does have this exposed ventilation and electrical, and in this room, it really does kind of clash with the art style. Like, they're hanging these little signs off of the vent. Like, have some class, man. That just seems wrong to me. You should hang it up next to the door. There is one window, but you can't see anything outside, and it's pretty uneventful unless you're playing RE3, of course. Spoilers. And this back corner area is actually pretty cool. Like, I don't necessarily love copy paper and office supplies, but I love the idea of storage, especially when this space is utilized very well. I actually got yelled at by one of the stockroom managers for putting stuff underneath the staircase because they didn't want to go behind it, but it was just like underutilized space, and I feel like I was in the right. And now that place is out of business, so who's laughing now? I think neither of us. The loot in this room is really underwhelming. It's literally just this green herb, and the enemies are just generic zombies, and nothing really eventful happens in this room, but it still has a pretty cool vibe, so it's good enough to get a C+. And up next we have the Dark Room. And because this is a save room in the game, it's going to score a little higher. And it is a pretty memorable room, even though the lighting is pretty bad. I guess it's supposed to be dark because it's a dark room. But it is a very cozy little room, and it's one of the best save rooms in the game. And if you love photography and cameras, then this room is probably in your S tier. But I will say I'm not a huge fan of the color scheme in this room. It's just two dark green colors next to each other. But the vibe in the back developing room is much better. And this red light just makes everything pop off. And you have your bathroom style ventilation, which I have never seen in America. I've only seen this in Asia, so I don't know if that's just a Japanese developer thing. But if you've seen that in the US, let me know. But the fan is pretty nice. Do photos get smelly when you develop them? Like, is there a strong chemical smell when you develop photos? I don't know. But either way, the room is very cozy. It is super iconic with the save room theme, and I can just picture myself relaxing, listening to that on repeat while developing photos. And the loot in this game is actually not too bad. You get an ink ribbon, and if you're Claire with the special key, you get the Colt S.A.A. revolver, and it's just a neat little gun. And of course, you can develop all the film here, so there's plenty to do. Even though the lighting is kind of dark, which again it should be, I feel like the location of the room is also really cool. You can finally get away from all those hallways and just be inside a nice square-ish room. So to me, even though I'm not a photographer, I still can vibe with this room. So I'm going to go ahead and give it an A. Alright, now we're in the evidence room. and I kind of find this room annoying. I don't know, it's very memorable to me because there's like a million zombies packed into this little room like a clown car, but there's just not much to do here, and the space just feels very awkward. I will give some bonus points for these hanging lights, that's pretty unique, but the lamps might be the best thing in this room, honestly. Like, this metal shelf is just very uncomfortable. Like, it's practical, it looks sturdy, but I don't know, it's just so messy. And this kind of trash can should be like an outside trash can. They need to get better, more appropriate trash cans for this room, right? And it's so small too, like you just put one paper in there. That's why everyone threw their stuff away around the trash. The room is just incredibly cramped, and it just feels bad to navigate, especially when you're squeezing through all those zombies. The room is a bit more eventful in RE3, in my opinion, just because you get some key items. But you do get the plastic bomb as Claire, and you get film A or B depending on the scenario. But that's pretty much it. It's just kind of like a room before you get to the real room you're anticipating to go to. But that's pretty much it. I think you just go through this room once and you're kind of done with it. So unfortunately, I have to give the evidence room a D. Alright, now we're in the West office, and this room has some very intense music when you walk in. Of course, the most iconic part of this room is finding Marvin, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the first instance in the franchise where you actually see someone turn into a zombie. So it was actually pretty horrifying for its time. The loot in here is pretty substantial. You can get the blue card key from Marvin while he's still alive, and before he just runs to the door and locks you out. I don't know how he gets up so fast. I don't know where he got that sudden burst of energy, unless he's faking it, just fake being a zombie. Do you think, because you know there's people out there that are odd like that, you know, like like people who impersonate police officers. Do you think anybody impersonated being a zombie just to feel special? I'm sure there's one case at least. But you also get the heart key as Leon, and you get the detonator as Claire. And there are other zombies in here in the B scenario, but that's pretty much it. And as far as the vibes go, the office layout is pretty good. There's a water cooler in the corner, and Leon just says nothing suspicious. Great detective work, bud. But the desks themselves are pushed into the center, and they're very crooked and off-center, and that's kind of bothering me. And these chairs look super uncomfortable. It's like a step above the operation room's chairs. So the chairs so far are pretty lacking. And the design of the ceiling is pretty neat with these arches up here. This kind of, again, remnants of the old-style museum. But it fits this room pretty well. But the desks themselves are very uncomfortable. Marvin has a leather couch in his office, of course he does, and his own private bookshelf. So the best part of this room is Marvin's office, honestly, and the rest is not really cozy at all. But it is a workspace, right? So is it really supposed to be? Can you imagine a zombie wearing that fake glasses, nose thing, and mustache? That'd be pretty funny. He turned after getting ready for Leon's party. So again, Marvin's office is the perfect hideaway, and it's iconic because you see Marvin for the first time, and you see Marvin turn into a zombie here. It has good loot variety, but it's still not the coziest workspace, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it an A-. So now we're going to go back to the West Wing stairway and explore the West Wing second floor. And to me, this upper floor is not that great at all. I don't like the yellowish hue on the walls up here. It does have those interesting vertical lights up here, which is pretty cool, but I don't know, there's just something about this room that bothers me. They do have arches up here, but they're very small. It's like, I don't think you need them for support. And for the loot, of course, you get the red jewel from the statue puzzle, and this is like the first actual puzzle in the game, I think. But I feel like the space of this room could be better utilized. It just seems so empty, like especially when you first go up the stairs. There's like nothing here. There should be at least a little desk up here. You can kind of peer out over the stairway if you want, but at least from this camera angle, I can't see anything. You do have these interesting stone inlays on the wall here, and that looks a little classy, but the overall color palette of the room is just kind of gross, and I really do not like these tiles. It's like, even the sound of the tiles bother me. I don't know why, it just feels very cheap and artificial, like laminate tiles. And you can get kind of a glimpse of the ceiling if you look at the statue, and that stained glass ceiling is pretty cool, but you can't really see it any other way. You just get a very small glimpse of it. And what is this electrical wire coming across this hallway? Certainly you could have just moved it down towards the bottom, and the statue's not gonna like cut it off, man, like. And the vents are just kind of odd being in this one little section of the hallway here. I think this room could have been better planned out. I feel like I'm talking about this room too much. I don't like it. I think the vibes are off. I'm giving the West Stairway second floor a D. And And up next we have the office corridor. This room is just very generic to me. The gray color palette does not help its case. Even the wood flooring is really gray for some reason. And it's not like they can't replace the floors, like they have this brand new wooden door for the S.T.A.R.S office. But the room does have these really cool supplemental lights or auxiliary lights on the side of the arches here. And that's actually a really nice touch. But for some reason they still use the ceiling lights. And I think if you turn those ceiling lights off and just use these lamps on the side, the atmosphere would be much more chill. And again, this is just one of those messy rooms that I don't think was caused by the zombie apocalypse. I think it was caused by lazy little police officers who didn't want to clean up after themselves. All this random trash doesn't make sense. What is this? This is like a floor buffer. It's like stuff used for cleaning, but it wasn't used here. And these boxes just bother me. They should be placed somewhere else. And I don't know what the deal is with this bench up here. Like, do the police really take the people they have in custody all the way up here and make them sit down up here? It's just so far away. It doesn't make any sense. Unless this is like a kink bench or something, or just like handcuff storage. It is a very odd room. There is no loot in here whatsoever in any of the scenarios, and I think that's kind of a wasted opportunity. Like, you could have put an herb on this bench right here. There are zombies in this room, so it's just very basic enemies. And it is iconic as Claire because it's the first time you see Sherry, so the room has something going for it, but unfortunately I have to give it a D-. And now we move on to the S.T.A.R.S office, and you all already know how amazing this room is. First and foremost, the loot in this room is amazing. You have the key item of the unicorn medal that's under Chris's diary. You get handgun bullets in every scenario except for Claire B. Claire is hard mode in this game. She really gets the worst weapons. She gets the grenade launcher, which is amazing, but it's like they switched it up from RE1, where Jill was like a god and Chris was just like a little pipsqueak. They gave Leon all the good guns in this game. So in the A scenarios, you get the shotgun here as Leon and the grenade launcher as Claire. And in the B scenarios, you get the Desert Eagle as Leon and the fan favorite bow gun as Claire. And Claire also gets the diamond key in the B scenario here. There's no enemies here, but that's a good thing for this room. But there is kind of a hidden puzzle here if you consider the Easter egg of Rebecca's photo as a puzzle. But even beyond that, this is where Claire and Leon meet up in Leon's A scenario and Claire's B scenario. So the room has a lot of good vibes because you see that both of you are alive and well. Just surviving, you know. The lighting in here is really amazing, even though like every single light is on and it's just a little too bright, but it just kind of works for this room. And I think the grayish blue tiles kind of work with this light. And in this corner, you have an awesome leather jacket and you have that basketball poster right next to it and cars. It's like a... It's a 10-year-old boy work in this office. Oh, and you have I want to say that's a Gibson Les Paul guitar on the floor right there. That's pretty neat. But for a Gibson, shouldn't you have a guitar stand? Like, those are not cheap guitars. Can't you just hang it up on the wall? Just lean it against the thing? Or, I mean, if it's just an Epiphone, then go ahead, throw it around. I have an Epiphone. But having a guitar in the office is just amazing, you know, just to unwind. And you all can probably see already how much more comfortable the chairs look in this room compared to the West office downstairs. Like, these chairs can roll. These are like state-of-the-art chairs. This is a S.T.A.R.S office. This isn't your peon police force, so it makes sense. And this intel gathering machine up here is just so cool. It just makes the space really technologically advanced, and it just makes the room more special. The room literally has everything you need. It has a TV up here. It has your fax machine. You can play music if you want, and it's just an iconic room with iconic vibes. So I'm going to give this room an S+. And next up is the lounge, and this is one of those rooms that looks good on the surface, but deep down I think it's a really bad room actually. I don't know if I'm extra sensitive to spaces. I feel that way for some reason, but this room just feels super off to me. The loot is okay. You get handgun bullets in every scenario except for Leon B, and you get the handgun parts in this little fancy red drawer here if you use one of those keys, and you get the diamond key as Leon B back here on this closet, I believe, and you get shotgun shells and flame rounds as Leon and Claire, respectively. There are a lot of zombies, I guess, lounging around in this lounge. They can be fun to shoot as Leon since you have the shotgun, but as Claire, it's really painful to get through this room. And in the Leon B scenario, you do meet Claire and Sherry here, and in Claire A, this is where you meet Leon. But these kind of mini iconic moments pale in comparison to how uncomfortable this room makes me feel. For instance, this reddish wooden desk next to this brown wooden door really clashes. Like, these colors are very painful to look at. The flooring is actually acceptable. It looks like real wood floor, but the spatial layout of the room itself is just super uncomfortable to me. There should definitely be a little coffee table somewhere around here, but you just have to sit with your drink on your lap. I don't know, that's crazy. The trash can is green. Why is it green? You can't have a normal trash can. It's like a green trash can with gold trim. And you're just gonna put regular coffee in there? That's just weird. So not having a table here is definitely a huge oversight. And these seats kind of look comfortable on the surface, but the more I look at it, the more it reminds me of a subway seat. And there are magazines here, but they're probably all super outdated, like from the 70s, and it just depresses me for some reason. I don't know why. For some reason, I actually like this corridor. It feels like a haunted house, especially with this boarded up door that's red. So the vibes back here are actually surprisingly chill. And I'm noticing a lot of lights in the RPD that are just never used or never turned on. It's just very odd to me. You definitely have enough electricity to power it. You can see it right out in the open. They drilled a hole through this archway to put that cable through. That's insane to me. Bro, there has to be another way. Makes me feel sick to my stomach. I do like the windows. I wish you could interact with it more. There's a lot of possibilities with this giant windowsill. Like, there could have been some loot on there. But the spatial layout of the room itself just kind of ruins the whole vibe. So I'm gonna give the lounge a C+. Alright, up next we have the library. And this room might be my personal favorite, actually. I think there's no other room in the game that really keeps its art museum aesthetic as well as the library. I just find this room very relaxing and very cozy. The loot is okay. You get 1 red herb and the bishop plug or serpent stone as Leon and Claire. And there are no enemies in this room, but you don't need them. This room is supposed to be a safe space. It's like a safe room that isn't a safe room. It's not like RE2 Remake. The room has so many iconic moments, like falling through the ceiling from the 3rd floor balcony is pretty unexpected. Why does the floor just give out like that? But the fall is actually pretty high. I took the time to measure out how far it actually is, and according to my measurements, in this frame, Leon is 264 pixels tall. So according to the official RE2 guidebook, Leon is 178 centimeters, so 5'10". So if we measure the distance from the 3rd floor balcony to the ground, it's 481 pixels, which comes to about 324.31 centimeters, which is about 127.68 inches. So that fall is 10 feet and 7.6 inches, so that's pretty high if you ask me. I'm surprised nobody sprained their ankle at the very least. My kneecaps would shatter if I fell from that height. But aside from that iconic fall, the room, in my opinion, has one of the best puzzles in the entire game. This library puzzle is so unique and memorable. I was just kind of surprised that you were able to press the buttons and move the shelves like that. I actually found these kind of shelves in a library during my grad school, and I was shocked that these things actually existed. I was like, you can crush people if they're not careful, but I think they have really good sensors on the shelves so they won't crush your fellow students, so that's good. But aligning the shelves to match the painting back here is just so awesome. It's just such a good puzzle design. And the 2nd floor of the library has so many cool little nooks, like the one you just fell through, and also this little area. And if you want to sit down, you can, but you have to fold out these chairs yourself. And I love the staircase here. I love this little fancy design along the side of the staircase. And the staircase is really narrow, but I actually kind of like it. It's like you have to wait for me to come up before you can come down. And it's just such a power move when you're already going upstairs. Like, wait for me. And if you want to be a jerk, you can just read a book at the bottom stair so nobody can pass you. And the color palette of the room is just so calming and relaxing. It's like this perfect sage green that really complements the bright wood shelves that are all over the library. And of course, there's so many books to choose from. It's just amazing. I don't know if I like this circle pattern here, but I won't be looking at it long enough to really care. But it's just such an impressive looking room. Like, the ceilings are so high and it just has that nice arch shape up top. And honestly, it is literally one of my favorite rooms. It has so many nooks inside here, so many places you can hide, so many places you can seek, and I literally can't think of anything bad about the library, so I have to give it an S+. Up next, we have the main hall 3rd floor. And you might call me crazy here, but I actually really like this room. On the surface, you might not think there's much to do up here, and you'd be right. but I don't know, there's just something about it. And the detail of these pillars on the arches is just amazing. And the color contrast between the red brick and this kind of beige brick is really cool. The balustrades are a little lacking. It's not as fancy as it could be. I guess they thought nobody would come up here and point out the balustrades. I'm the first one. And combining everything with the gray tile floors, the color scheme of this room is actually really cool. Personally, I would like the railing to be a little higher. It's like at Leon's waist. You could easily fall over there. My hands are getting tingly just thinking about it. And the space is pretty well illuminated by the entire main hall and these extra lights above the door. But if you're Leon, this room is really underwhelming and easily like a D tier room. But as Claire, it is wild. Seeing Mr. X climb up here in the Claire B scenario for the first time was super shocking. I did not expect that to happen at all. It's like literally the room you least expect Mr. X to show up, right? And he shows up in the most badass way I could think of. And it's super memorable. Also, as Claire, you have to fight a licker up here, and that's pretty annoying, but everything is just harder for Claire, so. And if you kill Mr. X, you get grenade rounds, so there is technically loot up here. Yeah, just for the Mr. X appearance alone, I have to rank this room surprisingly high at a B-. And now we're in the Cog Room. And this room is one of the most unique rooms in the entire RPD, and I'm still not sure if that's a good or bad thing. The room itself requires 2 key items in order to progress. You need the crank to lower the stairs, and then you need to find the cog wheel later to open up that shaft. And sliding down the chute as Leon is pretty okay, I guess. Whee! And the entire room is very cog themed. It kind of reminds me of the Cogwork core in Silksong. But if you're like me and you don't like cogs that much, it's kind of like, meh, whatever. I don't really care about these things. A rusted gear. Metal Gear. Otacon. Do you know what happens when you leave Metal Gear out in the rain? But other than the cogs, you have this bell up top here, which I didn't realize existed until making this video. And that's one of the good things about making these kind of videos. You see things you would normally just run by, and you kind of pay attention to things more. Just like these awful looking lights, unfortunately. I kind of do like the scaffolding part upstairs here. It feels more comfortable to walk around, and the material is kind of unique, but I'm not a huge fan of these kind of bricks up here. It just feels very castle-y, and I don't know. I know what happens in Leon's future. He has to deal with a bunch of evil castles, and poor Leon doesn't know that yet. The Cog Room doesn't really appeal to me personally, but a lot does go on in here, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a B. And up next, we have the final main hall room, which is the main hall 2nd floor. And honestly, this might be the worst main hall section out of the 3 rooms, but it's still a pretty solid room. The enemy variety up here is pretty interesting. You can have zombies in the first part of the game and lickers later on. And in the B scenarios, the unicorn medal is in this slot, so it's a really good use of this otherwise empty space. And in this center part here, pressing the emergency ladder button is pretty satisfying, and when you climb up and you have to kill that licker, that's always scary. But the windows here are actually really cool, and we don't really see too many windows like this in the game. But at the end of the day, it's just a very annoying C-shaped hall. It kind of reminds me of the 2nd floor dining room in RE1. These little balconies right here are pretty useful, and they do serve kind of a practical purpose if you're dodging zombies. I find it incredibly annoying having to dodge zombies here. It just feels like it takes so long, and I always get bit if I try to run by them. That's just me. And at the end of the day, nothing too iconic really happens up here, so this might be one of the most average rooms in the game, honestly, so I'm going to give it a solid C. And now we're completely done with the west wing of the RPD. And before we move on to the east wing, we need to talk about today's video sponsor. The good folks at Umbrella Pharmaceuticals have come up with a fabulous new pain medication, Adravil, now in cream and pill formula. If you have pain, try it. And if you don't try it, you're a piece of shit. Visit promo code at the checkout for your free Adravil for life. Now let's get back to the tier list. And the first room in the east wing is the east hallway. The only loot you get in this room is 1 green herb, and that's very little compared to this giant room. There are 6 zombies in here when you first come in, and it's really only fun to kill them as Leon with the shotgun, and with Claire it's kind of a nightmare. I don't really enjoy navigating through this room at all, and I really can't think of any iconic moments that happen in this room, so if we're just going off vibes here, it's still not that great, honestly. The room just feels very uncomfortable. The tiles do look kind of awful. There is is a bit of variety with the color, but they just look like bathroom tiles. And you have your payphones here, but it's nothing to care about, according to Claire. Come to think of it, I don't think I've ever seen a payphone inside. Aren't payphones like mostly outside? Am I wrong about that? The vending machines are kind of nice, but I don't know. I feel like the variety inside is pretty lacking. I don't know what kind of trash can this is. You can only throw away red and green trash. Nothing is wrong. You sure about that? Yeah, so it's nice to have concessions here, but the bench here is just pathetic. Like, what are we doing? I don't want to sit on this while I enjoy my soft drink. In general, I'm not really impressed by this room. There are some cool bloodstains here, but the novelty of that wears off because there's bloodstains all over the place. But the rest of the room is just really basic. Like, you still have these tube lights on the top and the ceiling. There is less exposed wiring, so I'll give them that. But again, you have the option to light these candles here and make the mood of the room so much better, but instead they just chose to use the overhead light, and maybe they were trying to get away from the aesthetic of the mansion a lot from the first game, but still, come on, who doesn't love the mansion? You can have your cake and eat it too, in my opinion. The boxes at the end just look kind of depressing, like there's nothing interesting inside. And it does kind of look like we're in a subway station with this arched ceiling up here. But I guess this room kind of functions as a reception area too, with these office windows over here. But it's just not nearly as cozy as the waiting room in the West Wing, so this room is just like the ugly cousin of the waiting room, in my opinion. So I'm going to give the East hallway a D. Moving on to the next room, we have the East office. Again, I'm really unimpressed by this room, and for some reason, I've always hated this room a lot. I think trying to navigate this space with all the zombies is always frustrating for me. You just get very little for your effort, in my opinion. The loot in the room is okay, I guess. You get some handgun bullets and an ink ribbon, and in the safe you get shotgun shells or acid rounds, and of course you get the valve handle and the B scenarios on the shelf. So it's kind of an important room, but not really. The zombies in here scattered all through the office just makes this room unbearable to navigate. But as far as being an office goes, it does have everything you kind of want. It has a nice fridge in the corner, and I don't think the other office has a fridge. Of course, the other fridge doesn't have an office. It'd be such a cold office, can you imagine? There is somewhat of a novelty with the moving ceiling fans, but after a while, the noise just gets really annoying to me. The office chairs look a bit more comfortable than the West Wing office, but there's no partitions between the desk, so you're like forced to talk to your neighbor, and that kind of bothers me. Like, I don't want other people's stuff spilling onto my area, and the desk is just overcrowded and uncomfortable. I am a fan of this bookshelf in the corner here. This brown side is holding its own, and the right side has blue and white books. And that's an odd way to organize books. I think if you organize your bookshelf by colors, it just means you don't read them. And the office itself is a far cry from Marvin's office. This office is just so depressing. The safe is kind of a cool feature of the room. You don't really see that in many other offices. But yeah, other than that, the office just seems so empty and soulless and lifeless. And there is not a single chair in this office, so if you need to call someone in for a meeting, like how are you going to talk to them? You just have to make them stand or sit on your lap or something. It's just, I don't know. The office here is just very uncomfortable to me. And honestly, to me, the back corridor here is the best part of the room. It's a bit brighter. It has more interesting lights going on with this emergency exit. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's smaller and there's less depressing stuff to see. Yeah, I don't know. I just never enjoy being in this office, and to me, the vibes are just horrible, so I have to give the East office a D-. Alright, now we have the Interrogation Corridor, and right off the bat, I have to say I really hate the color palette in this room. Having 3 different shades of brown is never a good look. But the floor is actually super shiny for some reason. Can you see like the reflection of the door on the floor here? It looks super dirty, but it's actually kind of clean, and that's throwing me off. It does have that very open ventilation and electrical theme going on in here, and in this room it really doesn't make sense. Yeah, it just clashes with the kind of clean style of the room. And what is this little bench doing here? Like, get this the hell out of here. It doesn't fit this room at all. But it does look mildly comfortable, I guess. But again, if you notice the theme, the lamps on the side of the pillars here are never lit, and I think that would add so much to this room. I want to see someone mod this game and just change the light sources from the overhead CFLs to the lamps on the wall. I am curious to see what that would actually look like. I think it would make the game look a little better. So in the A scenarios, there's only 4 zombies in this hall, and it's pretty underwhelming. But believe it or not, I actually rank this room pretty high. And you probably guessed why. That is because Mr. X makes some of the most iconic appearances in this room. During that second encounter when he crashes through the wall, that is the most unexpected thing in any PlayStation era game, and it really scared me when I was playing when I was a little baby child. It's such a nice fake out, and it really makes you uneasy, like you never know when Mr. X is going to appear again. It makes the room really iconic to me. And if you kill Mr. X, he does drop some bowgun bolts or shotgun shells, so the loot isn't that great, but just the appearance of Mr. X alone crashing through the wall is enough to put the Interrogation Corridor at a B-. And up next we have the Interrogation Room, and this room is absolutely necessary to get key items to progress through the game. You get the Rook plug here as Leon and the Eagle Stone as Claire, and there's a first aid spray here in every scenario except for Claire A. I don't know why Claire gets like nothing in this game, but the most iconic thing about this room by far is the liquor jump scare. It might be one of the best jump scares in RE2, so that alone makes this room super iconic. As far as the color palette goes, it's an interrogation room. It doesn't need to be very bright and vibrant. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable, I guess, so you confess. But there are places to sit, and the interrogation table itself isn't too bad. It actually has a nice wooden finish. So it'd be kind of a nice place to chill if you weren't being interrogated, you know? So the vibe of the room isn't that great, but the liquor jump scare elevates this room so much. So I'm going to put the interrogation room at a B+. And now we're on the other side of the mirror in the observation room. I guess it's okay for observing and stuff. It has the same chairs as the interrogation room, so I guess they're equal in that way. But the room itself is super uneventful. I don't think anything interesting happens in here. The color palette of the room is actually a bit better than the interrogation room. I do kind of like this lighter brown color on this wall, but the room just seems kind of musty, and it almost seems more like a lunchroom, like a break room, so you can just eat your snacks while you watch TV, or eat your lunch while you watch the interrogations. That actually sounds pretty cool. I was going to say that there might be some cool books in here, but there's nothing special on the shelf. The loot in here is really unremarkable. You only get handgun bullets unless you're playing as Leon A, in which case you get the small key, so if you're a key hunter or a key collector, maybe this room is better, but the vibe is decent, but it's really unremarkable and kind of forgettable, so the room barely passes at a C-. Alright, the press room. This room is pretty hit or miss for me, but I will say it does encapsulate the old museum vibes really well with the modern police furniture and technology and stuff. And you also get that golden cog wheel after you solve the lighter puzzle. And the puzzle itself isn't that impressive. I forgot what it was like to do it without knowing the solution, so I kind of just do it automatically now. But I think the torch or candlelight always adds a little something special to the room, but it's not as effective as it could be in this space. I think because the lights are too bright already in here. The walls in this room are pretty interesting. It actually seems kind of textured. Like if you run your fingers across it, it would feel different. If you're into more tactile senses. The picture with the cog itself is pretty underwhelming. It looks like it belongs on your refrigerator, like it was drawn by a kindergartner. So the room itself is not that bad, but what elevates this room so much is Mr. X breaking through that wall in the B scenario. It is one of the most iconic moments of Mr. X appearing in the game, and it is truly horrifying. So again, Mr. X saves an otherwise unremarkable room, so I'm going to give the press room a solid C. Alright, up next we have the East Stairway first and second floor. Technically this room is 2 separate rooms, but since there's no loading transition between the first floor and second floor, I'm going to count this as one room. And for this one, you might call me crazy, but I actually really like this room. I think the atmosphere in this outdoor space is so peak. The textures on the ground are just so unique, like you can step on this crunchy gravel and it just feels so satisfying when you walk around. And that green color of the gravel is so awesome compared to the gray cement on the wall here. And it has 2 exposed barrels out here, and that's the perfect amount of barrels. You don't want one to get lonely. The entire vibe of this area is pretty industrial, but it just looks so clean and I really like it. Yeah, doesn't it kind of remind you of the opening area in Dino Crisis? But then if you get bored downstairs, you can walk up these little metal stairs. You have 3 separate sound textures in one room, and that's just awesome. You have the hard cement, the nice crunchy gravel, and the metal stairs. So it just has a lot of layers for being such a small room. And I admit the top floor is pretty uneventful, but I still like it. It's such a cool little balcony. You can just hang over the edge and smoke a cigarette or hang out on your phone if you want and listen to that zombie groan. I do wish there was a chair in the corner. That would just make this place that much more cozy and chill. There's not really a place you can sit really, but I understand the room's not iconic at all, and the loot's pretty underwhelming. You have 2 green herbs downstairs and just 1 upstairs, but the function of this stairway is actually really good. It does lead to really critical areas of the game, so I think it's really well placed. It's a perfect downtime room in between really chaotic rooms, like the downstairs office or the upstairs crow hallway. So because the room makes me feel so relaxed and it has a really good atmosphere, I'm giving the East Stairway a B-. Up next, we have the Watchman's Corridor. Honestly, I am not joking when I say this. I forget this room exists almost every single time I play the game. Every time I use the heart key and go through the door, I think it leads right to the stairs, and I'm like, oh yeah, this room exists. So we're not off to a good start if I completely forget about this room right away. The color palette is so ugly. It has like that sickly yellow color. And again, it would be very interesting if they lit up the lamps on the wall here. I think it would add so much depth to the room and so much flavor to the room. And there's not too many notable things that happen in this room. There's of course the cord option that you can use to close all the windows. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of a nothing room. You can't really interact with much either. And when the best feature of your room is a shelf, that's not a good sign. But to be fair, the loot on the shelf is pretty good. You can get shotgun shells as Leon or acid rounds as Claire, and there is a green herb in the beginning of the hallway if you get bit, which I always do. But because nothing really happens in this room and the vibe is just kind of bad in general, I unfortunately have to rank the Watchman's Corridor pretty low at a D+. And up next is the Watchman's Room, and that makes sense, being next to the Watchman's Corridor. And you need the spade key for this room, so it's kind of a second half of the RPD kind of room. And it is a pretty cozy space. It's a nice little getaway, and it has some decent loot. Shotgun shells for Leon, acid rounds for Claire, and you get the Desert Eagle here as Leon in Leon A, and just Magnum bullets as Leon B. So it's definitely worth your while to swing by this room. But my first thought is that this room should be carpeted. I don't know, it just feels like, I don't know, what were they thinking with all these hardwood floors here? The furniture here looks very flimsy. It doesn't even look like IKEA furniture. It looks like whatever the step down is to that. And I'm still not sure what the hell this is. A paper more than a week old. It looks like a drink cart to me, but it's supposed to be like a paper stand. This is like one of the weirdest furniture objects in the game. Have you seen such a thing in real life? Have you seen such an abomination? And moving further in past this little archway here, we're in the bedroom area. So I guess the other area is the dining room or living room. And the bedroom is okay, I guess, if you like dorms. Yeah, imagine not choosing the bottom bunk. Like, who would want to choose the top bunk if you had a choice? Am I crazy? Like, why would anyone choose a top bunk over a bottom bunk? If you're by yourself, I mean. Like, what would be the benefit of that? Do you feel more comfortable up top in that little loft area? What if you have to use the bathroom? What if there's an earthquake? What if there's a monster? But maybe the monster would be under the bed, so it's wiser to be on the top bunk. No, I'm not changing my mind. Bottom bunk is king. You know, this little guy with his throat and abdomen torn out, I would move the body out of the room if I wanted to chill in here, but I guess this is a nice place to blow your brains out. With a Desert Eagle. Wow, that's kind of overdoing it with your little skull. Look at these provocative posters over here. Let me get a good angle. I'm pretty sure they just went around the Capcom office when the game was being developed and just took photos of actual posters on their office walls. But yeah, the room pretty much has everything you need. Getting the Magnum here, which is some of the best loot in the entire game in my opinion, is a definite bonus to the room. I think it's solid. It is a bit stuffy without any windows. Yeah, I can smell the BO from here. Overall, the room's pretty okay. I didn't realize there wasn't a fridge in here, so I might have to dock points in the future, but for now, I'm giving the Watchman's Room a solid B. Up next, we have the Waiting Room, second floor, second floor. What was that? I don't know. I actually really don't like this room. This might be one of the most bland and worst save rooms in the RPD. It just doesn't feel very safe at all. You have these couches over here that look super uncomfortable. It's just like the other lounge area, and these just look like seats you'd find on the metro. You have a few cool lamps in the wall. This one is actually lit. It's one of the only lit wall lamps in the entire RPD, and it is a pretty nice color, but it gets immediately washed out by these white lights on the ceiling. And the magazine rack just looks really sparse and super depressing, and it just makes the space feel really uncomfortable. The columns in the corner are kind of cool, but how do you even get behind this secretary desk? There's like no little flap you can lift up, or at least I can't see one. And if there is, the couch is pushed up right next to it, so you can't even get in. Yeah, like what do you have to hop over like a parkour person? The maps on the wall just look like from a children's coloring book. I don't know, it just looks like a very elementary school map to me. And it's just a really uneventful room. Like the loot in here is really subpar. You only get an ink ribbon and a small key for Leon and some handgun bullets in the B scenarios. And the room is in a good location. It's sandwiched between the main hall, second floor, and the helicopter corridor. But for some reason, I really don't enjoy the vibes in this room. And to not feel safe in a save room is a huge deal to me. So unfortunately, I have to place the waiting room second floor at a D-. And up next we have the helicopter corridor, and this is a hall that leads to another hall, but it also leads to other pretty cool rooms as well. I do like the wood floors in here, and the contrast with the gray walls. I think it's a very plain but neat color. And the shapes on the wall just kind of add something interesting, even though they're kind of meh. But the lighting in this room is absolutely amazing when the helicopter's on fire, so the hall gains a lot of points for that. And anytime you're near a fire, it's just super cozy. The hidden hall behind the blown up corridor is kind of underwhelming, but I actually don't mind it too much. There's an interesting little red carpet near Chief Iron's office, and sitting in the helicopter seat also sounds kind of fun to me, when it's not on fire, of course. And seeing the flaming zombie in here is really memorable to me, and also having to deal with the two lickers in the B scenarios is pretty scary, but pretty fun to deal with. And just seeing the helicopter in like 3 different phases, when it's on fire, when it's not on fire, and when the corridor is blown up next to it. The room just undergoes a lot of changes, and I think that's pretty interesting. There is no loot in this room, but it really doesn't need any, so I think this room is just a really solid corridor, so I'm gonna give it a B-. Up next we have the storage room. And this is a huge space compared to other storage rooms, like in the Spencer Mansion, so it's kind of nice. It is a really significant room in the game. You get some pretty good loot, like the diamond key and the king plug or bluestone left piece, and you also get the blue card key in the B scenarios here. And this room kind of has it all. It has a really cool, iconic enemy appearance when the licker crashes through the skylight window in the B scenario. And the puzzle has a really neat aesthetic, even though it's not the most difficult puzzle to solve. But the cutscene with the chest opening up is actually really memorable. And as far as the vibes go, the room is pretty solid. It's actually pretty interesting to see where all the art is stored when they just moved everything out and replaced it with handcuff benches. Why'd they do that? They could put some prisoners in this little jar. It feels kind of fun to dig through all this old art stuff and just see what's here. So the room is kind of exciting in that way. And if you want to sit down while you rummage through all this stuff, you can fold out this chair. That's pretty convenient. Even though the room probably smells very musty, I mean, you can imagine what this room smells like, right? Just that damp, kind of mildewy smell. But once your nose gets used to it, it's actually a pretty chill room. The storage room pretty much has everything you could ask for, and it's not the best, but it's pretty high up there for me. So I'm going to give it an A-. And up next we have the Crow Passage, and this is one of the more interesting hallways in the game, and I kind of like the vibes in here as soon as I walk in. The floors are very creaky, but I kind of like it. And it's not the best color scheme, of course, with this cold light reflecting off of everything and not using these lamps on the wall. The lighting's not as good as it could be, but everything's passable. Like the trim is pretty cool, it has a very unique pattern next to the pillars and stuff. It just has that really antique feel, and I do like crows, but the crows in RE2 are super aggro. I don't know, I just don't like them as much as RE1. But with all these open windows in here, the room is actually really nice. It's like you can hear the fresh breeze pass through the hall. There is a bunch of junk along the corridor, and that is really unpleasant to look at. I do like the chair here, though. You could fold that out if you want. And you do get some loot in this room. You get handgun bullets and a green herb in the B scenarios. But the room has 2 iconic moments, and one is when the crows crash through the window and that really jarring music plays. And the second moment is, of course, the first appearance of Mr. X. And it is absolutely awesome. Hearing his footsteps coming down the hall, not knowing quite what it is absolutely terrifying. and this is such a good room to introduce Mr. X in. So the room is pretty average, but the appearance of Mr. X just elevates this whole corridor. So pretty much based on the iconicness alone, I have to give the Crow Passage a B+. Up next, we have the Helipad, and this is one of the biggest outside spaces in the game that's not in the city, but honestly, it's pretty unremarkable. The best part about this space by far is the helicopter crash cutscene in the B scenario, and using the valve to put out the fire is pretty cool, but other than that, you really don't spend too much time in this big space. It would be really cool to have a boss fight out here, like if Mr. X came out here, you could go one-on-one with him, but other than being a little firefighter, there's really not much else to do in this space, and it's just kind of underutilized to me. The room has its moments, but once you do everything you need to do, you never want to come back here. So I'm giving the Helipad a C. And before we finish up the second floor, we're going to take a little detour into the basement. So now we're at the basement entrance, and honestly, I think all of the basement rooms are pretty bad in my opinion. Dealing with the zombie dogs in this blind T hallway is never fun, but the room does have a really interesting enemy variety. You can get dogs in here, or zombies, or lickers, but the room itself is just so unpleasant. Like the gray color is just so drab, and you have the most boring brown color on the bottom here that's just oversaturated. The color scheme does make sense here, but to me, I just don't like it. I do like the red glow of the Autopsy Room, as well as the green glow of the parking lot. I think it's a nice little accent to this room. But it's just a really boring, awkward hallway, and all it does is lead to other rooms. And none of the rooms are really that great, in my opinion. So this room is just the beginning of a section of the game that I don't enjoy playing. And I'm just not a fan, so I still have to give it a D. And up next we have the Autopsy Room, and I'm going to tell you right away, I absolutely hate this room. It is one of the most annoying rooms in the game, and if you want to get the only loot in this room, which is the red key, you need to deal with all these zombies coming back to life, and it is admittedly pretty iconic, seeing zombies crawl out of the... what are these things called? Little cubbies? But the room is just so unpleasant to be in. I know it's an autopsy room, like, you want to hang out here? No way. So seeing the lickers in here in the B scenario is pretty cool, and watching them drop from the ceiling is okay, but I legitimately hate going in this room every time, so it makes me not even want to pick up the card key to open the storage room. So it does have a cool horror aesthetic, but to me, I just don't enjoy it, so I have to give the Autopsy Room a D-. Up next, we have the outside area. It's a very unique name for a room, and honestly, this might be the first F-tier room in the game. The loot in here is terrible. You only have one red herb, and you always have to deal with those two zombie dogs in this room. And for being an outside space, it is so uncomfortable to be in. I will say it is pretty detailed with the lamp and the moths flying around there. I don't think we see the color of these bricks anywhere else in the RPD, so that is pretty unique. The room is kind of an RE3 style room. It just kind of looks like the downtown Raccoon City area, if you know what I mean. You have a lot of fuel stuff, like whatever these gas canisters are, and gasoline. I don't know if they should be next to each other. And for being an outside area, you can't really see upstairs, so it doesn't even feel like an outside space to me. But I do think all the different lamps, pipes, and valves are pretty unique, and I don't think you really see that in any other area in the RPD. So originally I had this room as an F+, but the more I'm just kind of hanging out in here, I'm okay giving it a D-. Up next, we have the Generator Room. And call me crazy, but I love this cozy little space. Even though it's very electrical and seemingly very dangerous, for some reason it just feels like a nice little hideaway. And the loot in this space is actually pretty solid. You get one green herb, and you get some handgun bullets as Leon B, and flame rounds as Claire A. And flame rounds are pretty hard to come by, so it's pretty significant. But to me, the Generator Room has one of the best puzzles in the game. And I don't know, I just find it kind of fun flipping the switches, and I never consciously think of what the solution is, but I just always do it by muscle memory. But it's one of the only puzzles in the game that's actually a puzzle. I will say RE2 is kind of lacking with its puzzle design. RE1 and RE3 are definitely much better. Maybe I should do a puzzle tier list. But the vibe of the room itself is just very standard, but the more you look, the more interesting it gets. Like, you have a little desk here. I don't know, you could eat a snack if you want. And I forgot until just now that you could actually go into this area. For some some reason, I just thought it was a C-shaped room, but yeah, being able to circle all around is just very nice. You can do laps, you can get your steps in. To me, the room just feels like a nice little hideaway from all the chaos in the basement and all the other really terrible rooms. So maybe the generator room gets bonus points just by virtue of it being surrounded by really terrible rooms. But to me, I find all the machinery in here oddly comforting. Like, I love the whirring sounds and just the gentle hum. I don't know, call me crazy, but I feel relieved every time I enter this room, so I have to give the generator room a B. Now we have the arms storage room. And this is basically the loot room, right? It does take a lot of effort to unlock this space. You have to go into the autopsy room to get the card key and then solve that cool little generator puzzle. And to me, the effort feels worth it because the rewards are pretty good. You get handgun bullets in here, you get the Mac 11 submachine gun and the side pack. You also get shotgun shells as Leon A and magnum rounds as Leon B. And you get the beloved bowgun bolts as Claire A, but you get acid rounds as Claire B, so that's pretty nice. But besides the loot, the room is pretty unremarkable. It really has nothing you can do in here. I feel like I'm gonna trip on one of those shell casings on the ground. I don't know, it just feels like you're not supposed to be in here very long, so it makes me a little uncomfortable, and the vibes kind of suffer because of that. So after you get the stuff, you just kind of want to get out, right? So because of that, I'm giving the arms storage a B-. Alright, switching back to Leon. Up next, we have the parking lot. To me, I don't really like the vibe of this room at all. Like, you get the impression it would be kind of cool and interesting because it's a parking lot and there's a lot of cool different things to see, but at the end of the day, there's nothing really here. Except for cars and dogs sometimes and a vending machine. And this is the kind of vending machine that if you get something out of it, you don't eat in the parking lot, right? You just go to another room and eat. I don't know, I think this is a weird place vending machine. But of course you have one of the most iconic moments of Leon and Ada meeting for the first time, and it's probably one of the most consequential meetings in the entire franchise. I feel like if this parking lot didn't exist, RE4 doesn't happen, like a butterfly effect. And it's pretty romantic to push that SWAT truck together. You can show her, look how strong I am. But other than this meeting, there really isn't much else to do here, and the loot is really underwhelming. You only get one green herb, and this whole space just seems very underutilized. Like, I can't go any further. He's like a caged animal. Yeah, it's like you want to explore more, but you can't. And to me, it's kind of like a fake out room. It's like, it gives you the impression that you can explore all these different nooks, but it really doesn't have any spaces you can hide in. It's pretty much a glorified hallway with all these cars. I originally had this room as a D-, but now that I'm thinking about it, this room is really important for the canon of Resident Evil, so I'm going to give the parking lot a C. Up next, we have the cell block entrance, and this room is completely unremarkable to me. There's literally nothing going on in here. The color palette is just 3 different shades of gray, and it does kind of make Leon's uniform stand out a bit more, but I don't know, I just don't like it. And this is another room that I forget even exists until I play the game. You do have a little table with a stool here, and it has the only loot in the room, either handgun bullets or the film C in the B scenarios. But this desk is just so sad. Like, imagine just sitting here, looking at the wall, thinking about what you've done. This is like a prison enough, a prison of your mind. The light coming through the gate actually looks pretty cool, but other than that, this room is one of my least favorite in the game. And honestly, to me, this belongs in the F tier, so I'm giving the cell block entrance an F+. Up next, we have the Kennel, and this might be my least favorite room in the entire RPD. And it's not because I'm a cat person, but these dogs are super aggro and annoying, and it's just kind of depressing seeing them be behind the cage and just old yeller these dogs really quick. Bro, that's 3 shotgun shells. You're a tough little dog. Yeah, this room is just absolutely abysmal in terms of vibes. It's just so cold and damp and gray. The wall and the floor are literally the same color, and the loot in here is just terrible. You just get a blue herb and a red herb as Leon, and you get the square crank here as Claire in her B scenario. It does look like there's a little sink back here where you can wash your hands after you go into the sewer, but I don't know, man. I don't think that's enough to get you clean. To me, this room has no redeeming qualities whatsoever, so unfortunately, I have to give it an F. And up next we have the cells, and there are surprisingly very few cells for a police station. Each cell has one single light up here, and it does make sense for a prison cell. I'm not sure how these benches stay up just by being hooked on the wall. That seems kind of medieval. The loot in here is kind of unimpressive. You just get 1 green herb and 1 blue herb, and you get the manhole opener as Leon, and you get bowgun bolts as Claire. But the room has some of the most iconic cutscenes in the game, where you see Ben in the holding cell for the first time. I got him right here, officer. And Leon just smacks the cell with the back of his hand for some reason. Who does that? I do wish I had a cup to drag along the prison bars. Why do people do that? That's kind of interesting. And of course, the cutscene of Ben's death is just so iconic and memorable, and it's so painful to watch him being ripped open like that. I don't know if it makes sense anatomically, but it's just really awesome and memorable, and Ada walks in like nothing happened. She's such a cool spy. So the room itself is pretty terrible, but the iconic moments of the game do elevate the cells quite a bit, so I'm going to give the cells a C+. Alright, now jumping back to Claire, up next we have the Taxidermy Room. And right away, this room definitely gives me RE4 vibes, or Code Veronica vibes, and I think it's a pretty interesting room, even though it is very torturous looking. But I guess those animals aren't going to taxidermy themselves, but I feel like Chief Irons gets a little too much pleasure doing that. He's your psychopath narcissist type. Formalin, chloroform, and other chemicals. He doesn't have any Adravil here. What a loser. But even though this room does smell like death, I actually don't mind it. All the chemicals and objects on the shelves are really interesting, and some of it's just disturbing stuff. And the only loot in here is some acid rounds, but that's pretty good loot. Anytime you find acid rounds, you're having a good day. Yeah, but for what it is, this room is actually kind of nice. I wouldn't want to lie on the bed or anything like that, but you have a little sink where you can wash your hands. You have all these chains to display your animal. I don't know, I've never taxidermied anything. And you have a nice little chef's apron over here. Yeah, Chief Irons is just odd, but at least he keeps his taxidermy room clean with this mop and bucket. This room has one of the best NPC deaths in the game, especially in the B scenario, where Birkin just drags Chief Irons down here and yeets his body through that trapdoor. It's just so violent and awesome, and it's good to see Irons get his comeuppance, so that's satisfying. But the more I think about it, the more I don't want to hang out in this room too much, and yeah. I have this room down as a C-, but I honestly might bump it up to a C+, so I'm going to do that. Alright, now we have the Secret Underground Passage, and this room legitimately might be one of the worst in the RPD. It's just so forgettable. There's literally nothing going on in here. It just looks like one of those sex dungeons, and not in a fun or exciting way. It's just really depressing down here. And other than these floodlights and these weird chains on the wall, the room really has nothing going for it. And I don't know, the torchlight is okay, but honestly nothing else happens in this room. Yeah, there's no loot, there's no enemies, there's no puzzles, there's literally nothing in this room. And because this room is so forgettable, I'm gonna give it an F. Alright, now jumping back upstairs, we are now in the taxidermy display room. This room actually gives me Spencer Mansion vibes a lot, and not necessarily in a good way. It reminds me of one of those very uneventful rooms that really serves no purpose, and I personally just find uninteresting. And the color palette in this room is just very ugly. You have potential with this nice blue carpet down here with this interesting pattern. The contrast with these walls that I don't even know what color that is. Yeah, the contrast of this blue carpet with this whatever color is on the wall, it's just so jarring. It's kept clean though. Could eat off those nights. I'm not a huge fan of anything in the display cases, but I do like this little angel statue up here. I think that's pretty neat. And the rest are just plates. But I will say the attention to detail on all these objects on the shelves and the layout of the paintings just makes sense. It's like this room was really thought out, but it was thought out by someone who has bad taste. And then you have this back room here, and I just don't like this area. It's very depressing to me. You can turn the light switch on once and you can't turn it back off again, and not being able to toggle the lights is really a letdown to me. It does have potential back here with this fireplace, but of course it's not lit. It just has a bunch of furniture that's been folded up, and I don't know if this is a little chair or not, but who's gonna fit in this little place? What is it with Resident Evil and these really tiny chairs? I don't get it. Unless that's not a chair, then I apologize. I apologize to that piece of furniture right there. The room is somewhat memorable when you chase Sherry back here and you just hear little footsteps, and then you finally have a conversation with her, but the cutscene just gets so old after you play hundreds of times, and I just find it very tedious. But other than that, there's nothing really going on here. It's like a room you go to once, and that's pretty much it. If you had someone else designing this room, I would probably rank it higher, but for me, I find it really tacky and ugly, so I'm giving the taxidermy display room a C-. Up next, we have the Stuffed Tiger Corridor, and this is another one of those rooms I forget about, but for some reason, every time I rediscover it, I absolutely love it. It's just so unique and pleasant to be in, and this tiger as a centerpiece to the room is just amazing. A stuffed animal. At least he's not hungry. When I played this game as a kid, I always thought it was going to come to life, and just thinking that in my imagination was enough to scare me. And the carpet that goes throughout the center of this corridor is actually really unique. There's no other rooms in the game like this. And I really like the trim pattern on the wall here. It's just really fancy and not too over the top, and it really fits whatever these patterns are on the wallpaper here. And the lighting contrast in here is actually really awesome to me. You see these little pockets of shadow in the corners over here, but then you have these little spots where it's illuminated, and I think that's really cool. And not many rooms in the RPD have that kind of lighting contrast, so this is like what the RPD could have looked like if they just used the candles on the wall instead of the overhead lights, and I think it's pretty cool that we get a glimpse of that in this room. And of course, as Leon B, you have an iconic encounter with Mr. X, and it's just super unexpected after you pick up the crank and come back through here. And yeah, seeing such a tall, scary figure storm down this nice, fancy corridor is pretty jarring. To me, I love the vibes of this room, and I love the iconic moment of Mr. X, so I'm gonna give the Stuffed Tiger Corridor an A-. And now, we are at the final room in the mansion. I mean the RPD. I'm so used to saying mansion. And of course, I'm talking about Chief Iron's office. This room is just unlike any other room in the RPD. It is super fancy, and as far as offices go, this is probably the best you can get in this building. And I actually kind of love the vibes in here, honestly. Even though taxidermy isn't my thing, the coffee table in the center of this room is such a nice touch. And having big comfy chairs here is just perfect for this room. And the rug underneath this table is super nice. I wish it was a little bit smaller, but we still get enough contrast between the rug and the hardwood floor. And it looks like a very mature looking room, like it's made out of oak. And then of course you have these fancy lights over the doors here, and that is just so thoughtful for this kind of room. Not many doors have their own light in this game. And Chief Iron's desk is so comfortable. Look at this comfy chair, it's like a villain chair. And this is easily one of the most comfortable chairs in the RPD. You might have to wash the craziness off of it first. And the desk itself is nice and hefty and very organized. I may not agree with Chief Irons on much, but I agree with how he cleans. And to me, the painting in the back here that you need to put the 3 stones in is actually amazing. Her eyes are just very haunting, and I don't know if that's a hand shape there, but I don't know, it just looks like a painting I would actually like to have in my house. Oh god, it just occurred to me that I have the same aesthetic taste as Chief Irons. That's not good. I know some weird stuff definitely went on in this office, but I'll try to forget about that. And the loot in here is really important. You get the heart key as Claire, and of course this is where you use the 3 keystone items to progress to the S.T.A.R.S section of the game. So it's just a really important room for the game in terms of gameplay, and it's also pretty iconic as far as the story goes. This is where you meet Chief Irons for the first time. I think his name is Brian Irons. That's actually a cool name. Brian Irons. And this is also where you meet Sherry again, and seeing the mayor's daughter kind of sprawled across the top of the desk is pretty weird, but I kind of just want to poke her with a stick.
Please, I'd like to be left alone now.
I don't want to leave him alone with that body. I don't trust him. Yeah, despite this room being owned by a very weird person, it has one of the best vibes in the game to me. And on another note that's not really related to the room, I had no idea that Sherry grabbed Claire's hand in the game when you stay right next to her, and that is just so adorable. I didn't notice that for 28 years or whatever. It's too bad Claire abandons Sherry after the game, but that's life, kid. But as far as this room goes, it is one of my favorites in the game. I think it's one of the most important rooms in the game, and despite being owned by a complete psycho, I'm giving Chief Iron's office an S. So that's the end of the ranking for the RPD. What'd you think, Dylan?
I actually really like the sex dungeon.
Are you hungry, Dylan?
A little bit, why?
Because I got a fresh knuckle sandwich just for you, bud.
Please don't.
Right off the grill, bud.
How can you sit there and eat